Summarizing all 50 parts of the Risa Tisa Who the F Did I Marry videos in one singular part, let's flow. Risa Tisa and her ex-husband, who she calls Legion, met in March 2020, right before COVID, on 2 different dating apps, which was the first red flag. One was his real name, one was a nickname. They hung out a ton, and when COVID hit, they decided to quarantine at her house, which she agreed was a little fast. Not long after, she gets pregnant, they decide they need to get married. During all of this, they decide they want to buy a house. He can't show proof of funds. Unfortunately, she miscarries the child, and he doesn't even go with her to the surgery and says he has an important meeting for work. Allegedly, at this time, he works as a VP for a condiment company and leaves the house at 6:15 a.m. every morning and comes home at 3:34 p.m. Eventually, they continue the house search and she wants to see his accounts. He shows her a Chase savings account and a Chase checking account where he has money in it, but says he also has money from playing arena football in a U.S. bank account and an offshore account. Next on the list of things that started giving her pause was a car. She wants this dark blue BMW with cognac interior. He doesn't end up getting it for her, but he does buy a BMW, which he says is his work car that he keeps at some random building that he says the condiment company owns. Some other sketchy stuff happens. They get married January 2021. 2 weeks later, flips his vibe. Starts acting weird, accusing her of cheating, makes up some story that her ex showed up in a Dodge Charger at their house, but she confirms it's a lie because they have a Ring camera. But he does little things to keep her around, like printing out an itinerary for a trip on her dream vacation to London with flights and all that jazz. They try to get another house, third time, with a different realtor, this girl named Amber, and basically they pause it because he can't show the proof of funds, and this woman, Amber, basically gives her like this aha moment where she's like, you can either buy the house with him or I got you if you want to do it by yourself. And she's like, by myself is probably a better idea. Tons of other small things that happen but are important. They do marriage counseling with a pastor, but she also like catches him doing Facebook Messenger with other women that he of course talks himself out of, but he moves into the guest room. She decides to pursue a new job opportunity and needs to put his social security number on the application. The one he begrudgingly gives her is basically different than the one that's on their marriage license. She looks at both. One has no records. One is completely different than what he said he did, which was live in California and have an ex-wife there. Through all this, he gets his knee injury at work, never gets it checked out. It turns into this debilitating injury where he's basically bedridden and he just brushes it off and says it's like an old football injury. One day he calls her and says the stepdaughter from his California marriage had passed away and they need to give $2,000 towards a funeral. Of course, she says yes, she's human. She does some more sleuthing and finds out basically that this California marriage actually happened in Georgia and he basically lied about the whole story and she was the one who divorced him and he couldn't even pay for the divorce fees. Finds the ex's phone number, ends up calling her, and basically the ex is like, if you're calling me, I know it's bad, don't believe the thing he says, everything he is a lie. They have a good conversation, she keeps most of it to herself. Continuing her sleuthing, she finds his mom's obituary where she learns 2 more things. 1, he has another ex-wife that he never talked about, and 2, the 2 sisters he claims to have don't exist. In the midst of this, he changes jobs, he's bedridden, and basically he's just sitting there slugging Powerade every day. One day, she turns on his old work phone and finds texts and confirmations that he's been seeing a sex worker. Obviously, it doesn't even surprise her at this point. One thing leads to another where June 2021, on his birthday, she confronts him in bed where he had been peeing in those Powerade bottles, which is disgusting. They have a huge blow up, they're on the phone with family members. She kicks him out, he leaves with 2 bags of clothes. Eventually, they're texting about the divorce. She goes to file, and his cousin calls her and is like, who are you? What's going on? What's happening with this divorce? He just showed up and we haven't talked to him in years. Basically, she confirms all the stuff is completely made up that he's been saying, and she's like, he's been lying since he was little. I'll get you in touch with his brother so you can like work this out. She requests to meet Legion at a UPS so they can do the signature for the divorce papers. He shows up, same clothes, has basically been living out of his car, smells, and is even smaller than he was before. In the conversation with the cousin, she basically finds out that he has a twin, and that's basically who he's been pretending to be with the VP title, the luxury car, the family house, and she's like spiraling. She ends up calling the brother, they talk, he basically said, I haven't spoken to him in 5 years, and she's like, what? Every single morning we woke up and he was on the phone with you and we would like be talking to you, and basically it turns out he was talking to himself the entire time. The brother confirms that basically everything he said about his family he made up, including like where his parents are, how they passed, what siblings he has, all this is insane. And he tells her that he has a criminal record. Then she starts doing reverse Google image searches on all of these things that she found on his work phone, which were the Chase bank account statements and the BMW and all that stuff, and she basically finds out that he just found them on Google. When all this happens, his aunt calls her and is like, what's going on? He's trying to ask me for financial help, and she's like, oh yeah, we got a divorce. We tell her, and she's like, oh, but what happened to the baby? She's like, we don't have a baby. And she's like, no, what? He's been coming to Augusta for months telling me he's gonna bring the little boy and that you guys are getting divorced and he's bringing the little boy with him. And she's like, that's not true. Eventually, she looks up his criminal records, finds out he's gotten arrested for things like suspended license, trespassing, but the most important one to her was that he got arrested for impersonation of an officer. Now we're in August 2021, he's basically disappeared, she can't find anything about him, and basically starts reaching out to every single person on Facebook he's ever mentioned to try to figure out where he might be. They all want nothing to do with him. She finds out that he checked himself into a hospital for 2 weeks so he could have a bed, ends up calling her 30 times a day, every hour of the day, and she basically calls the police and is like, he's stalking me, he's harassing me. The police say there's a warrant out for his arrest. When he shows up, call us and we will come and arrest him. That's what they do. She's watching from a car across the street. They arrest him. He gets out of the car, same clothes, still living in his car, even smaller. She said he was a 3X, now he's a medium. And basically he peacefully gets arrested, but he wants to talk to her. They exchange a few words while the police officer is there with the body cam, and she's basically like, I never want to see you again. She gets a letter that the divorce is finalized. She's crying with relief. She also donates all this stuff to a domestic violence shelter and calls the car to get it repossessed. And she's like, I'm out of here. I'm moving. This is it. He's done. He's in jail. It's good. She's scheduled to move on August 31st, and his court session on August 29th, 2 days before, they find out the warrant's expired and he's getting released on the 30th. She goes to stay with her aunt on the 30th, so there's no contention there. She basically wakes up, moves within 2 hours, boom, done, doesn't hear from him until December 2022, 5 months later. She's out from work from COVID, and basically he calls work trying to find her, and she sends him one last message and is like, if you ever try to contact me again, I will get a restraining order, and she never heard from him again. That's the story. Basically, she then does like a whole Instagram live, but the moral of the story is she's an amazing storyteller. It had everyone hooked. I hope she gets a lot of brand deals. I hope she gets her BMW and gets to go on her trip to London. Obviously, do your due diligence, talk to people, go watch her series because she deserves to be supported. But I just gave you all the deets, and now do with it what you will.